I grew up skating in the 90s. I don't know if it's just because I grew up then, so of course I'm nostalgic about that time or what, but I still think that, you know, that was like one of the golden eras of skateboarding. Like I still look at footage from then and it's just timeless, you know? 80s, 90s basketball and then 90s skate. It's like somewhere blending the two of those things, and I wanted it to be really simple, but also like when you start looking at all the details, it's like, oh, everything feels really like considered, you know, like I thought about every little part of it. You know, with design, I feel like it's an iterative process, you know? It's like you draw something, you draw it again and again and again, and like little pieces of it just start to reappear in every drawing, you know? And that's the stuff that sticks around, you know? It's a cup sole, but I wanted it to be grippier, you know? And like Volk shoes are always grippier, and like if you think about it, like the tape on a Volk shoe, you know, like if you cut a section through it, it's like really sharp corner between where the tape is and so when you put your foot on the board, it's like the whole bottom makes contact with the grip tape, and that's part of why. Whereas like cup soles are always like really filleted on the corner, like a round edge, so none of that like hits the grip tape, so it's like more slippery when you go like this, you know. And so I made like a tighter radius, and then I added like a little concave in the sole, like a little bit this way, so when you put your foot in the shoe, it's like all of the grip, all of the bottom of the sole really is like making contact with the grip tape, because that's really, I'm crazy about that. It's like if I put my foot in a shoe and I go like this and it feels slippery, I can't skate it, you know? So that was really important for me, especially because I skated Volk shoes for years, and I was like, no, I want to do a cup sole. I want this to be really comfortable, you know, but I also need it to like feel a certain way. You know, last night at the shoe event, Kenny Hughes was there, and I am a huge Kenny Hughes fan. I was like one of my first favorite skaters. Like I met him when I was really young, and right after like Third Eye View, the Element video came out, and he's just so underrated and so incredible. And so he was there, and I was tripping out. I don't know, the list of skaters, influences it's hard to like narrow it down, but I started skating for the firm when I was younger, and it was just because Rodrigo TX and Javier Sarmiento are on it, and I was like, I mean, two of my favorite skaters ever, and like the flick, and just, I think Rodrigo, I remember as soon as I saw that, I don't think it was a 4-on-1, and it was the People Under the Stairs song. I went and got that song immediately, and one of my favorite styles ever. So he's definitely on a list of influences for life, yeah. And of course, Welcome to Hell, Alyssa Steamer. Whether I knew it or not, it was like so important, I think, to be able to see that there was this girl skater that was just part of the crew, you know? And that really was like, you couldn't find that anywhere, so that was really cool to see back then. I needed that, I think. I've been skateboarding for over 25 years, you know, and my career it's just taken so many like unexpected turns, you know, like I went to school and studied all these other things and was kind of like not focusing on being sponsored or skating or anything like that for a while, and went back and forth, and then had all these years where I had to do contests to make money with skating, and it's like I didn't get a pro board until I was 30. It's hard to take a step back and see it all, but when I do, it's pretty cool. I feel really like fortunate, like the timing of just the opportunities I finally have gotten to have, and like where I'm at, and I did all those contests, and now I'm like I don't have to do contests anymore, and I don't want to, you know. I did the Olympics, that's kind of like the pinnacle of that stuff, and I feel like with street skating, it's like that's the beauty of it. It's just like you can always keep evolving, you know, like you can always do something you didn't do before, like do it in a different way, or it's really cool that all of my like kind of interests and skills, like skateboarding has a place for them, you know, and so I've been able to like do so much of what I love like inside of skateboarding. Yeah, I know Brazilian architecture. Lina Bobardi is like one of my favorites actually, and similar to skateboarding. It's architecture is pretty like all the famous people are usually men, you know. So when you see these like names of women pop up, you're like, oh, I think there's a lot of overlaps kind of, but when in some ways between kind of the way skateboarders and designers like look at the city and the space around them, like really noticing all the small details. Like skaters need to, because the difference between a material or like a crack here or there, or kind of like just the shape, like a little bit of a radius on a ledge or something is the difference between like what you would want to do on it, or if it's skatable. Or as an architect, it's like, I think about the same stuff, but kind of anytime you're designing something, it's like you're the one making all those decisions, you know, and trying to figure out how something goes together. And for me, I'm curious, and I love looking at everything and finding inspiration in everything, and just the attention to detail is like something that, I don't know, it's just, I guess, part of who I am, and maybe that's why I ended up as a skateboarder and why I ended up as an architect and designer, you know? I mean, I think skateboarding is definitely important for a city. No other user group cares as much about like their spaces as like skateboarders, you know? And whether that's something that was built for them, like for skateboarding, or something that they just found, like a spot that becomes beloved to like the skate community. Skaters really care, you know? Like we were just talking about that with like Love Park, and then the example of the spot in Sao Paulo, like if you try to take away this, like our famous spots, to us that's like our monuments, you know, that's like the stuff we love. So, but I think here and there it would be cool to have some like hybrid spaces, like something in between, and that's kind of like not just skate parks that are fenced off from, you know, the rest of the city, you know, like not just recreation spaces, but spaces that are like really fun and good for skating, where skateboarding is allowed, but that, you know, non-skateboarders like pass through and can spend time in, so it's kind of like a hybrid space for different user groups. Like that's a really cool idea to me. I'm teaching a class on skateboarding right now, actually, at the University of Chicago. I'm co-teaching this class called Skateboard Poetics, and I gave a lecture the other day on talking about what a skate spot is, and just talking about like the different conditions physically first that lead to a skate spot, and then going through historic skates. And most of the kids in the class aren't skateboarders, so to them it was like, you know, in the slideshow I had some just like pictures, you know, from folders in my phone of just like, you know, like a pole that's kind of like on its side. I'm like, see, this is a skate spot, and but last summer at University of Chicago, we did this like symposium where we invited there are a bunch of skaters that came from Chicago, and these like kind of crews of skate groups and nonprofits and stuff, whatever. It was a collection of people, and one of the kids there was talking about like they weren't like that good at skateboarding, were kind of new to it, but they were saying how like, well, skateboarding is basically just kind of hanging out. And I was like, I don't know why, but that sentence just blew my mind, because I'm like so intense, you know, and I'm always like, oh, I get really obsessed with like, I want to learn this trick, and I want to, you know, and I never really thought about, like for a lot of people, it's kind of just like, it's like almost the excuse to like call your friends and like meet up and like be in the city, or like just have something like creative and fun to do. And it's like so many memories come out of that, and it's, skateboarding sometimes just kind of, it's just hanging out, you know? I love that. You know, I was stubborn growing up. I was like, I'm gonna do whatever I want. It doesn't matter that I'm a girl or a guy, I'm just a skater. And you know, part of me, it's like, I still feel that way. Like, I am just a skater. I don't always like thinking about gender or anything like that. But when I think about it, it's like seeing Alyssa, like seeing that something's possible, seeing an example of something is like, you need it, you know, especially when you're a kid, and you need it to know like what's out there, you know. And so for me, it's, I mean, obviously, like I've skated for so many years, like for my career, it's like a huge personal accomplishment, and like the fact that I got to design this shoe, and it's huge for me. Like it's so surreal. I can't really believe it. But then beyond just selfishly how I feel about it, I hope that it's something that can like, yeah, I guess kind of inspire, or at least let other girls know, or other like non-guys know, like, oh, yeah, like she did it, they did it, I could do it, you know, like skateboarding needs more of this, you know, we need to like see it. The Guggenheim is such an iconic, you know, it's like Frank Lloyd Wright, it's, in my opinion, like one of the most beautiful museums there is. It's really exceptional for New York, where so many things have to be like rectilinear and they have to fit into the grid. So I just never would have, like, I don't know if it's like an ego thing, I never would have had the ego to be like, yeah, you know where my party needs to be? The Guggenheim, because I just didn't even think that was a possibility. So they told me, they kind of were they were being like secretive, and I was like, well, just tell me, like, where do I have to be? What's going on? And when they told me the Guggenheim, I honestly couldn't believe it. But I think, you know, seeing how it went last night, you know, not just for myself, like as a designer, an architect, artist, you know, getting to be in that space was like such a trip, like such an honor, and like so incredible. But just getting to see that space filled with skaters, you know, is really like so cool, and they just brought so much like energy. Skateboarding is obviously something that there's so many creative people in skateboarding, because so much of skateboarding is creative. So there are so many artists that are skateboarders, you know, and I don't know, I think that obviously skateboarders know that, but maybe not everyone like puts those two things together, because they think skateboarding is like a sport, or I don't know, whatever. But I think that skateboarders are just such passionate and like creative individuals, and so to see them in that space that's like this art mecca, it's really not something I would have imagined, but it made so much sense and was so like, it was so cool to see, yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. I hope you guys like the film, and I hope you have fun tonight.